Right now, Arsenal Football Club are in the middle of one of the most complex and high-stakes summer transfer windows in recent memory. And when you sit down and look at everything that is happening at once, you begin to understand just how much pressure is sitting on the shoulders of Mikel Arteta and sporting director Andrea Berta. This is not a quiet summer. This is not a window where Arsenal are simply adding a player here and there to keep things ticking over. No. What is happening right now at the Emirates Stadium is a full restructuring of ambitions. A club that has already won the Premier League title is now trying to prove that the first title was not a one-off, that they can build something lasting, something dominant. And to do that, they need to get this transfer window right. So let us get straight into it. Because right now there are four major stories developing simultaneously around this football club. A centre-back injury concern that is quietly worrying the board. A midfield target that has just become far too expensive. A world-class striker situation that could change everything. And a key player at the World Cup who is not looking right at all. Each of these stories is connected, each of them has consequences, and by the end of this video, you will have a clear picture of exactly where Arsenal stand heading into the summer of 2026. Let us start with why all of this matters so much. Arsenal are Premier League champions. That title changes everything. The expectation level has shifted completely. Supporters are no longer celebrating just reaching the Champions League. They are now expecting Arsenal to challenge for the European trophy as well. They are expecting the squad to be strengthened. They are expecting the club to act like the giants they have become. And if Arsenal get this window wrong, if they lose key players, if they fail to bring in the right reinforcements, if William Saliba's injury turns out to be more serious than currently understood, then the title defence could be in serious trouble before the season has even started. That is the weight of this moment. That is what is sitting on every decision being made right now at the Emirates. If you are the kind of Arsenal supporter who wants proper analysis on stories like these, not just headlines but real context and real insight, then hit that subscribe button right now. Because on this channel, we go deeper than the surface. We look at what the news actually means for this football club. Now let us go through each story one by one. Sandro Tonali. Why Arsenal have walked away. The situation with Sandro Tonali is one of the most revealing transfer stories of this summer. And the reason it is so revealing is not because Arsenal failed to sign him. It is because of why they walked away. Let us go back to January 1st. Tonali was offered to Arsenal during the winter transfer window. The deal was there, the opportunity existed, but it did not go through. Arsenal passed on it. And Tonali stayed at Newcastle United, where he has continued to develop as one of the more influential midfielders in the Premier League. Now summer has arrived and Tonali is once again available. Newcastle United want £100 million for the Italian midfielder. That is the asking price. £100 million for a 26-year-old midfielder. And on top of that, Tonali himself is demanding a very high wage, and his agent is pushing for what has been described as a crazy fee from the overall transfer package. When you add all of that together, the total cost of this deal becomes genuinely staggering. And it is now clear that Arsenal have looked at those numbers and decided that the financial package required to sign Sandro Tonali simply does not make sense for this football club at this moment. This is not Arsenal saying Tonali is a bad player. This is Arsenal making a financial and strategic decision. They have assessed the total cost of the deal, including the transfer fee, the wages and the agent fees, and they have concluded that the price is too high. And here is the important detail that changes the entire picture. Tottenham Hotspur are now leading the race to sign Tonali. And at this stage, the Italian midfielder himself is reportedly wanting to join Tottenham, where he would link up with head coach Roberto De Zerbi. That is a significant development. Because when a player is actively pushing for another club, it becomes even harder for a second club to enter and change the direction of that deal. Could Arsenal re-enter the race? The reality is that it remains possible, but right now they have stepped away. And based on the overall financial demands involved, it is not difficult to understand why. Arteta and Berta came into this window with a clear plan. They want to add another midfielder to support Declan Rice, but they are not willing to pay any price for any player. They are being disciplined, and that discipline has led them to identify a more realistic alternative. Bruno Guimaraes, the more realistic target. When you understand why Arsenal stepped back from Tonali, the move towards Bruno Guimaraes makes complete sense. Guimaraes has been the heartbeat of this Newcastle United team for several seasons now. The Brazilian midfielder brings energy, intelligence and quality in equal measure. He reads the game at a very high level. He can protect the back four, he can drive forward, he can link play. And crucially, he has already proven himself in the Premier League at the highest level. The evidence suggests that Arsenal have been monitoring Guimaraes seriously this summer. And the situation has now reached the point where Arsenal are preparing an £80 million offer to bring the Brazilian to the Emirates Stadium. £80 million is a significant sum of money, but when you compare it to the total package that Tonali was demanding, it becomes clear why Arsenal see Guimaraes as the more sensible and realistic option. Now here is the complexity that Arsenal need to navigate. Newcastle United appear intent on keeping Guimaraes. The Tyneside club are not looking to lose two of their most influential midfielders in the same window, and they will fight to hold on to the Brazilian. So even though Arsenal are preparing an offer, this deal is not straightforward. Guimaraes is described as a player who is ready to take the step up to a Premier League title-winning club. And if you think about what Arsenal are building, about the quality around him that he would be working with, the case for him joining makes a lot of sense. Declan Rice has been magnificent since joining Arsenal. He is a world-class midfielder and one of the best defensive midfielders in European football. But pairing him with the right partner is crucial. Guimaraes, with his energy and technical quality, could form a genuinely powerful combination alongside Rice in the centre of the pitch. There is also a third midfield option being tracked. Alex Scott of Bournemouth has been mentioned as another player on Arsenal's radar. Scott is a talented young midfielder who many believe is ready to play for one of the Premier League's top clubs. However, Bournemouth are reportedly reluctant to sell him. So while Scott remains a name to watch, the situation there is also far from simple. The overall picture in midfield is this. Tonali is almost certainly heading to Tottenham. Guimaraes is the primary target, and an £80 million offer is being prepared. Scott is a potential alternative but faces resistance from his current club. Arsenal are being strategic, disciplined and realistic. They want the right player at the right price. And right now, Guimaraes fits that profile more than anyone else. Julian Alvarez. Arsenal's major attacking opportunity. Now we move to arguably the biggest and most exciting transfer story surrounding Arsenal this summer. And this one could genuinely define the attacking identity of this club for the next several years. Julian Alvarez of Atletico Madrid is one of the most coveted attackers in world football right now. The 26-year-old Argentine has established himself as a player of the very highest quality. And this summer, he has made it known that he wants to leave Atletico Madrid. The situation is complex and deeply interesting. Alvarez's dream is to play for Barcelona. He has made that desire known. And Arsenal, Barcelona and Paris Saint-Germain are all competing for his signature. But here is where it gets fascinating. Atletico Madrid, managed by Diego Simeone, are absolutely determined to block a move to Barcelona. The relationship between these two Spanish clubs runs deep with rivalry, and Simeone's side are making it very clear that they will do everything in their power to prevent Alvarez from joining the Catalan club. This is Arsenal's opportunity, and it is a significant one. The situation is now this. Atletico prefer to sell Alvarez abroad rather than to a domestic rival, and they have already made contact with Arsenal directly, proposing a swap deal that would see Victor Gyökeres move to Madrid along with a cash payment. That offer is now on the table. Now let us be clear. Alvarez publicly pushing for a Barcelona move creates pressure on Atletico to sell. But Atletico are not going to make this easy for Barcelona. Every week that passes without a deal being agreed between Alvarez and Barcelona is a week in which Arsenal have more time to work on convincing the player to choose North London instead. And here is the detail that gives Arsenal genuine encouragement. Alvarez has already communicated to Arsenal that he is open to joining them if his desired move to Barcelona does not happen. That is a crucial piece of information. It means the door is open. It means the player has not completely closed his mind to the idea of moving to the Premier League champions. Arteta and Berta now need to act. The window of opportunity is there. Every week that passes without a Barcelona agreement is a week where Arsenal should be making their case to Alvarez directly. Arteta himself should be getting on the phone. He should be laying out the project. He should be explaining what Arsenal are building and why that project deserves to attract one of the best attacking players in the world. Think about the attack that Arsenal could build around Julian Alvarez. Bukayo Saka on the right, Martin Odegaard in behind, Eberechi Eze adding creativity, potentially Morgan Rogers adding pace and energy, and Alvarez as the focal point of the attack. That is a genuinely frightening combination for any defence in Europe to face. Atletico have valued this deal in such a way that a part exchange involving Gyökeres and cash has been proposed. That tells you something important. Atletico understand the value of what they possess. They are not simply letting Alvarez walk out of the door cheaply, but the fact that they would rather lose him to Arsenal or Paris Saint-Germain than to Barcelona gives Arteta and Berta their opening. The reality for the club is that this situation will drag on across the summer. Barcelona's move for Alvarez is expected to be complicated and slow-moving. Atletico will resist and delay. And in that window of time, Arsenal must make their move. This is a rumour and a developing story at this stage. But it is one of the most credible and significant transfer rumours currently surrounding Arsenal Football Club. And how they handle the next few weeks could determine whether Alvarez ends up in North London or eventually in Catalonia. William Saliba, the injury concern nobody wants to talk about. Now we come to the story that every Arsenal supporter needs to pay close attention to, because this one has the potential to affect everything else. William Saliba picked up a back injury in the final weeks of last season. The timing was deeply unfortunate. It came ahead of the Champions League final, one of the biggest games in Arsenal's recent history. The injury put serious doubt over his participation in that match and created concern at the club. Saliba is valued at £87 million. He is 24 years old, and he is one of the best centre-backs in European football. He is the anchor of Arsenal's defensive structure. Without him, the team looks fundamentally different. Without him, the defensive solidity that has been a cornerstone of Arsenal's title-winning season is compromised. The 24-year-old has since travelled with France to the World Cup in the United States, and on the surface, things look relatively positive. He has played 90 minutes for France against both Senegal and Iraq. He has helped Les Bleus progress through their group with relative ease. French media reports suggest that his back has not appeared to affect his performance levels in those matches. But here is what makes this situation concerning. Arsenal are not sitting back and relaxing. They are actively making checks on centre-back options this summer. And that behaviour tells you something important about the level of uncertainty that exists inside the club regarding Saliba's long-term fitness. Two names have emerged as players being monitored. The first is Maxence Lacroix of Crystal Palace. The second is Ezri Konsa of Aston Villa. Both are Premier League proven defenders. Both have shown the kind of consistency and solidity that Mikel Arteta values when he is assessing transfer targets. Now here is the crucial context. Arsenal are already well stocked with centre-backs. Their defensive depth is not a problem under normal circumstances. So the fact that they are now sounding out additional centre-back options suggests something important. It suggests that inside the club, there are people who are not yet certain that Saliba will be fully fit and available at the start of next season. A full picture of the situation will only emerge once the World Cup has finished. Saliba is playing in the United States right now. He is competing at a major international tournament. And until he returns from that tournament, Arsenal will not have complete clarity on the true extent of his injury concern. The contingency planning is sensible. It is responsible management. But supporters should watch this story very carefully because Saliba is irreplaceable in the truest sense. He is not simply a good player. He is the foundation upon which Arsenal's defensive structure is built. And there is a further complication worth noting. Lacroix, one of the centre-backs Arsenal are tracking, is also a serious target for Chelsea this summer. If Arsenal need to move quickly to secure a defensive option, they may find themselves in competition for the same player with another top Premier League club. That adds urgency to a situation that is already delicate. Bukayo Saka. Is he being rushed back too soon? The final story in today's analysis concerns a player who means everything to this football club. Bukayo Saka has been Arsenal's most important attacking player for the last several seasons. When he is at his best, he is unplayable. When he is not available, Arsenal looks significantly diminished. And right now, at the World Cup in the United States with England, Saka is not looking right. The 24-year-old has been dealing with an Achilles problem that was being carefully monitored by Arsenal throughout the final weeks of last season. That concern followed him into the England squad preparation for the tournament, and it has followed him all the way through the opening group stage matches. Saka was not in the starting lineup for England's opening World Cup fixtures against Croatia and Ghana. That is a deeply significant detail. England manager Thomas Tuchel is not the kind of coach who leaves his best players on the bench without good reason. Saka being among the substitutes for those matches tells you everything you need to know about how seriously the Achilles problem has been taken. He did eventually start in England's 2-0 victory over Panama on Saturday evening, but he was substituted in the 63rd minute, moments after Jude Bellingham had broken the deadlock. And the performance he gave in those 63 minutes raised serious concerns among those watching. Gary Neville, one of the most respected voices in English football, said directly that Saka does not look right at all. Neville described the Arsenal forward as usually being the player who is bubbling and smiling, full of competitive energy. But in Neville's assessment, that version of Saka has not been visible at this World Cup. And Neville described that absence as a concern for England. Ian Wright, Arsenal legend and one of the few people who truly understands what Saka means to both club and country, went even further. Wright questioned whether Saka has been rushed back too soon. He pointed out that England are 3 games into a World Cup and their best attacking player is still not looking like himself. And Wright was blunt in his assessment. He said Saka needs a break. The evidence suggests that the Achilles issue is still affecting Saka more than England are publicly acknowledging. The management of his minutes, his late introduction to the starting lineup, and now the substitution before the hour mark in a relatively comfortable victory, all point towards a player who is still working his way back to full fitness rather than a player who is genuinely sharp and ready to perform at the highest level. For Arsenal supporters watching this situation unfold, there are 2 levels of concern. First, there is the immediate concern for England's World Cup campaign. If Saka cannot reach his best form during this tournament, England's attacking options become significantly more limited. Second, and perhaps more importantly from an Arsenal perspective, there is the question of what condition Saka will be in when he returns to pre-season training. If he returns carrying the same Achilles concern, if the World Cup has added more strain rather than allowed him to recover properly, then Arsenal could find themselves starting their Premier League title defence without their best attacking player at full fitness. That would be a serious problem, and combined with the uncertainty around Saliba's back injury, it would mean that two of Arsenal's most critical players are both managing physical issues heading into a new season. England secured top spot in their World Cup group and will face the Democratic Republic of Congo in the round of 32. That means Saka's involvement at the tournament is set to continue. Tuchel will be managing his minutes carefully, but the fact remains that each game at a major international tournament adds physical demands to a body that is already under strain. Arsenal will be watching every minute of Saka's involvement very carefully. And when the tournament ends, their medical team will need to conduct a thorough assessment before any decisions are made about his pre-season preparation. The bigger picture. What does all of this mean for Arsenal? When you step back and look at all five of these stories together, a very clear picture emerges. Arsenal are a club in transition. Not a transition away from success, but a transition towards something potentially even bigger. They are managing the demands of being Premier League champions, while simultaneously trying to rebuild and strengthen for the challenges ahead. The midfield situation is being handled pragmatically. The Tonali deal made no financial sense and Arsenal have walked away. The Guimaraes pursuit is more realistic and an £80 million offer is in preparation. Arteta and Berta are not chasing stars for the sake of headlines. They are trying to build the right team with the right players at prices that make sense. The Julian Alvarez situation is the most exciting and potentially transformative story of the summer. If Arsenal can convince him to choose the Emirates Stadium over Barcelona, the attacking potential of this squad becomes genuinely elite at European level. But it remains a developing situation, and supporters should treat it as a significant rumour rather than a done deal. The injury concerns surrounding Saliba and Saka are the most serious underlying worries of this window. These are not transfer rumours. These are real physical situations that need careful management. And the fact that Arsenal are already drawing up contingency plans in defence tells you that the club is not taking any chances. The reality for the club is that this summer will require patience, discipline and smart decision-making. Arsenal have the quality to defend their title, but they need the right reinforcements. They need their key players fit, and they need to navigate a transfer market that is becoming increasingly expensive and complicated. This is a defining window. And every decision made between now and the start of the season will have consequences that stretch far beyond just the opening weeks of the Premier League campaign. Stay with Jessica Arsenal Analyst for all of the latest updates, deeper analysis and full breakdowns as this story continues to develop. Subscribe now so you never miss a video. Because right now, Arsenal's summer is only just beginning.